Hey soldiers, let's ask a question. Was SBF, Sam Bankman Fried, was he a patsy? Was he a fall guy? Was he the electronic version of Lee Harvey Oswald, sent or manipulated into assassinating not an individual, but the reputation of an industry? There are, well, not a lot, but at least I'd say 5% of the comments are in defense of Sam Bankman Fried. When we do these videos about the FTX collapse, about 5% of the comments are in defense of him. Now, a large percentage of those comments are so caustic in their defense that I don't allow them on the platform. But some come out and they don't, the ones that are on the platform, if you can see them, they don't really offer any objective, suggestions as to why this might not be him. He might not be guilty, but it's obvious that it's not a situation where they're saying, look, I'm being objective and just, ambivalent about it for now until more facts come out. No, these people are totally in defense of him. And that's fine. You can think what you want to think. And you know what? Let's throw those people a bone today. Okay? I tend to believe that there's enough evidence out there right now to convict this guy and send him away for a lot of years. Also, I want to point out that in an earlier video, I did say I was reading something and I said Sam Bankman Fried pled guilty. I read that too fast. I've done plenty of reports that obviously I know he's pled not guilty, but I made a slip. It happens, okay? But I want to emphasize that he has pled not guilty. All right, so let's throw a bone to those folks who believe in the guy's innocence. Okay, now I don't know whether these folk have lost money and they're, hopeful that they can get restored in some form of fashion. I don't know, but they deserve an alternate theory, I guess. And I got to ask the question here: was Sam Bankman Fried? Was he set up from the get up? Was he engineered into this? Did somebody personality type him and kind of forecast that he could be the catalyst for a drop of confidence in this crypto space? Okay. Now, who would benefit from that? Well, for starters, the United States government, along with the Federal Reserve Bank of the U.S. Now, why do I separate the two? Because the Fed is a quasi-governmental organization. They're certainly not accountable to you and me. We can't call them up and say, hey, I think your monetary policy is off base. They're not going to answer the phone. And if they did, by some stretch of the imagination, they'd laugh at us. So these two entities, now you got to remember, the United States government, thanks to the U.S. dollar, is extremely powerful. It's the most powerful entity we've ever witnessed on the face of the earth. And the majority of that power is derived from the fact that the dollar is the world's reserve currency. It funds everything: the vast military, the social programs, the influence around the world. You take that away, and there's going to be a lot of people who lose a lot of power, influence, and money. Now, you take Bitcoin, for example. Ultimately, well, the plan is that ultimately there are only going to be 21 million Bitcoins produced. Now, of course, Bitcoin is divisible. And quite frankly, mathematically, you could divide it infinitely. You could divide that up infinitely. But if Bitcoin is adopted to the tune where people move away from the dollar wholesale, then what you've got in America is a kind of a homegrown threat to dollar hegemony. Now, do you really believe that the United States government, do you really believe the government with these vast resources is going to allow that? Right. So, how do you deal with that situation? Well, and look, admittedly, I'm engaging in theory here, okay? And don't hit me with conspiracy theory. like that's a four-letter word, because, it's a fact that the United States government did engage in the Tuskegee experiment, for example. The Gulf of Tonkin really happened, okay? I could go on. So let's not pretend like the United States government has not done things that were billed as conspiracy at one time or another that turned out to be absolutely true. I mean, look, here's another example. For years, they told you it was swamp gas. And now they're saying that the U.S. Navy has identified unidentified flying objects flying all around the place, okay? But, you were made to believe it was swamp gas. You didn't see what you saw. So we've established that the United States will lie straight up, okay? And we could go on with those examples. We could do a whole report on that alone. So along comes Sam Bankman Fried, who just happens to be the son of some very well-connected Stanford law professors. Now, if you haven't had an opportunity, go take a look at the church committee hearings. They, in part, break down and analyze the depth of intelligence agency involvement in media. Now, these hearings were held back in the mid-'70s. Okay, so do you think that situation has gotten better in terms of being more favorable to the American public and the truth? Or do you believe that it has gotten, more favorable in terms of the government being able to build certain narratives with the help of the media? Now, why do I bring the media into this? Because they fawned all over Sam Bankman Fried. You remember the magazine cover that said, Sam Bankman Fried was the next Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett should be highly outraged. He should have been then. But here we have, and I guess Sam Bankman Fried was supposed to appeal to young people. Now, why is that important? Well, the older set, myself included, we're not into the cryptos. Okay, I've never been into it. But younger people, if there was going to be any demographic that needed to have their confidence undermined and just engineered to just run headlong back toward the dollar, it was young people. So this whole thing occurred right after an election. It all blew up in everyone's face right after an election. You got a lot of people who lost a lot of money, okay? Especially these young folk. We did the report on the guy saying he lost his life savings and is now suing Tom Brady. He had his life savings in FTX. Turns out his life savings was about, I believe it was like $30,000 to $40,000, somewhere in there. And look, that's significant to him, okay? It's money gone, all right? He might have to work very, very hard to get that back. So he feels that. Now, how willing do you think that individual is going to be to invest in crypto again? Right? So here we have this pudgy, high-pitched voice, unkempt Sam Bankman Fried, who stares down at the ground a lot of times when he talks to you and, just does not exude confidence, but is very, very well connected by birth. Now, his parents, as we all know, are professors at Stanford, law professors at Stanford. I don't know if they're going to be continuing in those roles due to all the scrutiny. He's got an aunt who's a dean of public health for Columbia University. These people are extremely connected. So if we take all this and put it together, it might be less of a shock that Sam Bankman Fried and FTX didn't receive more scrutiny before Maxine Waters' congressional committee. Of course, Waters was the chair of the House Committee on Financial Services. This is supposed to be the committee that's looking out for you and me, right? Oversight of the Financial Services Committee. And it's reported that old Maxine was blowing kisses at Sam Bankman Fried. All right. That's how friendly they were. Doesn't sound like a professional oversight relationship to me. Then you had the chair of the CME group, that commodities group. He went up to Congress and he basically told them that FTX was a fraud. And he was excoriated, torn limb from limb by one of the congressmen. Got to go back in the archives and look for that. We did a report on it. For even suggesting that. Was told that he didn't understand crypto and he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. So the media, legislative, and regulatory wagons all circled around this guy. Why? Why was there so little oversight? So few instances of people being critical and not being ridiculed. And then, we had this whole thing blow up after the election. He ensnared a lot of politicians because he gave a lot of money to politicians. That's one way to keep them quiet, right? So I think that one of the intelligence agencies, they found their man. They tested his temperament, typed his temperament, knew that he was not capable. Him and his band of, merry courtiers like Caroline Ellison knew that they were totally incapable of running a business of this magnitude, and probably figured that lack of experience and youthful exuberance would kick in at some point and sink the whole ship. And that has sent shockwaves throughout the crypto industry globally. All right. And listen, believe me, there are entities outside of the United States who also have it in their best interest to keep the dollar afloat as the world's reserve currency. I don't want to see any threat to it at all. Now, the United States in its, ham-handed, clumsy own way is doing all it can to destroy faith in the dollar by, the things that it's done in terms of sanctions. Other countries are certainly looking at that and saying, well, let's put some processes in place so that doesn't happen to us. And part of those processes is divestiture of the dollar in some way, shape, or form. You've even got Saudi Arabia out there cozying up to China in terms of the creation of a petro yuan. Even if these countries don't say, you know what, we're going to throw all of our dollars away. Even if they don't say that, even if they just say, look, let's make this more equitable with another currency, well, then that would hurt us. But that's a self-inflicted wound by the Biden administration. But yeah, I think that, this was designed. Call me crazy. I don't care. I think this was by design to destroy confidence in the crypto space. It's working. And to boot, the other thing you have is folk now clamoring for regulation. And as a former lobbyist, I can tell you the quickest way to stifle an industry and put the brakes on an industry is to bury it in regulation. And trust me, crypto is about to get buried in regulation because no one else wants to have something like this happen on their watch. Okay. No one wants this to happen. You got to remember all of these government types. A lot of them are lined up for some pretty cushy corporate jobs and board positions after they do their little stint in government. And they want squeaky clean resumes. And so get ready for the regulation. So that's the 1-2 punch. First, destroy the reputation. My dog agrees. And then kill them with regulation. You just have to keep in mind, folk, all that glitters ain't gold out there. Speaking of that, you're hearing more and more about a gold IRA. Is it worth it? Is it something that you should actually consider? Well, as always, you got to do your due diligence about things. But when it comes to keeping your money, take a look at this video. We examine and we do an honest review of the gold IRA. Guys, I'll talk to you soon.